Hello everyone, this is part 20 of What If Naruto Got His Wish, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The sound was heartrendingly familiar. It was as real and corporeal as it had been the first time around, and just as terribly unbelievable. To anyone else, it would have been easy to disbelieve, to pass off as mere illusion, for illusion it was, but Keisuke believed it. This memory was a part of him as much as the invisible arms that his jailers sought to extract. It was the sound of A.S. Town. Here now, thought the dreaming Keisuke. Why does it have to be this memory? My home, he thought bitterly. Had I chosen to be more aware, the grave would never have come to be. Orochimaru, you fiend. Did I really need to be reminded? The young version of himself would not feel this sadness for months after, when he had managed to drag himself to a neighboring town for medical treatment and recovery. He could remember the long loneliness that came after. And as he thought about it, the memories flowed past around him. At a rapid pace, he experienced his early teens all over again. They were dark years, spent in an orphanage with no real friends and a handful of adults who spoke of him with pity in their voices. The young blind child knew that they meant well for him, but he still could not stand it. Keisuke hated being pitied. The poor child, the matrons would say. So tragic. No child should have to go through that. God, woman. Keisuke yelled at one of them, though she was long-s and would never hear. Don't say that. It's my fault that it happened. I let it happen. Pity the other orphans, pity my father, the poor manipulated fool, but not me. The dream Keisuke did not yell, but kept to himself, hating their pity and hating himself for bringing it all to be. A metal ring that his mother had given his father once, long before that incident, as it hung on a chain around his neck. One or two of the greedier matrons had tried to pilfer it from him, under the pretense of volunteering to keep it safe. He had refused ardently to let anyone touch it. Other than repressed memories of the tragedy itself, it was all that he had left of his home. In this fashion, he lived his young life day in and day out. Until, at age 16, he accidentally lost control of the matron's cart one day. The matrons might have pitied him, and paid for the damage themselves, but they were not present, and the shopkeeper was not as kind. It was in the act of repaying his debt to the shopkeeper by cleaning up and repairing the damage that he met and befriended the shopkeeper's daughter, Yuka. From there, the dream took a very surprising turn. What the hell? The nightmare seemed to be over, giving way to memories of the start of Keisuke's less angst-filled second life. With Yuka's kind friendship, support, and understanding of his disgust for pity, the dream Keisuke began to recover from his dark ages. Within a week, he found himself smiling for the first time in years, laughing as they shocked the pants off of his caretakers with false eyes that she had crafted out of wood and paint. In 2 months, they were spending nearly all of their spare time together, picnicking on the banks of the river that supplied the town with water, fish, and commerce. By the end of the 5th month, the two of them were secretly courting each other. Suddenly the mature Keisuke understood what the dream was trying to do. Damn it, he wanted to cry. She feels and sounds too real. Despite knowing what would happen to him, Keisuke could not help but soften to the incredibly realistic reincarnation. Orochimaru's trap was clever in that even though he had guessed its intent, the allure of it rendered him powerless to stop him from falling for it like a total sucker. And when the sweetest of memories had passed him by, he found himself re-experiencing his 18th birthday, the day he left the town behind, taking Yuka with him to begin life completely anew. He listened to himself bid goodbye to the orphan matrons, who at last had given up the pity and become happy for him, returning to the place where all his sadness had begun. It was silent now. The dream Keisuke faced that ruin with not an ounce of shame or regret apparent within him. He was a man now, the memory of the horror would be with him always, but he now had the strength and maturity, and the support of a kind and wonderful fellow human being, to bear the burden of that memory. The real Keisuke thought, exercising the pity that he still loathed upon his dream self. You have no idea what the future has in store for you. The thought was as his dream self carried him up and out of the crater, into the arms of the waiting Yuka. Enjoying yourself, Keisuke-san, came the voice of his terrible caretaker. That's right, it's me again. Let's begin tonight's work, shall we? Damn you to hell, Snake. Oh, said Naruto, seeing her wake, you're up now, huh? He was seated on the ground next to the bench, leaning against the stone wall behind them. He regarded her with a cheerful look, but something on his face seemed distant, as though he had been absorbed in something. Sitting up and pulling the orange and black jacket, Hinata responded, yes. Naruto-kun, did I interrupt your thoughts? Me, thinking. Naruto said in a mock-affronted tone. If you were a normal person, you'd be taking my temperature and asking me what I'd put in my last bowl of ramen. He chuckled to himself over that little joke, and Hinata giggled with him. But then again, you're not that normal, he went on. That's one reason why I like you, though. Normal, for people who know me, is either violence or disbelief. It's good to have people who have faith in me, you know. Yes, Hinata agreed. I always had faith in you, Naruto-kun. I find it impossible not to. Naruto was quiet as it sank in. Hinata knew that he was remembering the conversation he'd had with her father. It had been then that he had found out the entire truth of her feelings for him. He appeared to have accepted her love as real, but was he still struggling with himself over how to respond to it? Yeah, he said finally, I know. Apparently, he was. She was benevolent, and understood the reasons behind his indecision to a certain extent, but the delay of his response was wearing on her nonetheless. She'd done everything that she needed to on her end. The rest was in Naruto's hands, and the suspense associated with having no control over an extended process daunted her. This was especially true due to the high risk involved with the mission, and the resultant possibility that there might never be another chance. Their recent pseudo-date, now that it was over and fresh in their minds, contributed to the stress as well. But, damn, Naruto said, hell of a night, huh? Harukane-chan's pranks are pretty funny, once you get over the initial shock. Yes, definitely, Hinata agreed hastily, glad to have something else to talk about. And we collected some useful information, too. Neji-ni-san will be pleased with us. Yeah, said Naruto, standing up. A lot more useful than Ero Senin's information gathering, that's for sure. It was kinda nice, actually, doing it with just us two. I wouldn't mind doing it again. The prospect of spending more such evenings with Naruto, a happy and willing Naruto, no less, was a huge booster for her spirits. Hinata lightened considerably. This was significant progress, and helped to ease the tension of the long wait. Smiling happily. But the blaring sirens halted her suggestion in her windpipe. What the? Naruto said, swiveling his head around to seek the cause of alarm. That's the village's raid siren. But I don't see any enemies. Damn it, have the front lines found us already? In the hallway, Sakura, Kiba, and Shino were all congregated, looking confused and alarmed. Seeing their leader, they turned to him. Neji, what the heck is that? Asked Kiba. The war wasn't supposed to come here, this town's supposed to be neutral, isn't it? Then, who would be attacking here? Wondered Sakura. Neji didn't know for himself. He could only listen to the commotion outside, the raid warning siren, the mercenaries scrambling to their battle positions, and the townsfolk bolting themselves indoors, and speculate. It may be, he said, that there is something in this town that one side or the other wants. There could be rich stores of resources here that could be used to fuel a war machine, or they could simply be after a staging point from which to launch attacks at closer range to the enemy. So, the sound would be after this place for those resources. Said Kiba. It may not even be the sound, said Shino. It could very well be our own Leaf forces or our allies from Sand. In that case, we would be expected to support the raid effort. That rung Sakura and Kiba's bells. But, said the medic, our allies wouldn't attack a neutral village just for that, would they? It is a large-scale war, replied Shino, matter-of-factly. The conflict could be spread out across the entire Shinobi map, eventually. Both sides must seize and secure as much territory and resources as possible, as quickly as possible, in order to gain an advantageous position early on. But, Kiba said, these guys never wanted any part of this. You're telling me our guys are just going to march in here? It is both likely and sensible, said the bug user. A stronghold near the sound border could shorten the war by giving us an early and easy access into their territory. This mountain village is both elevated and well fortified, making it easy to defend. It is an ideal place for such a stronghold. That may be, said Sakura, and I'm all for winning the war as soon as possible. But I still wouldn't feel any better if I were supposed to help capture these peaceful people. If it comforts you, Sakura-san, said Neji, the Sound will want to do the same thing, and they would not treat a captured town nearly as well as our allies would. You can think of it as the lesser of two evils. A second explosion rocked the town. This time, it came from the other direction. An attack from two directions, said Sakura. Hey, that isn't good, said Kiba. Naruto and Hinata are still out there. This realization struck all of the present shinobi interaction. If the two waves of advancing forces were the enemies of Leaf, it would not be good for their friends, nor for them. In that case, they would need to locate Naruto and Hinata and escape with them quickly. It seems that we will all need to get used to war, Neji said, and quickly. Kiba, you and Akamaru stay here with me. If it is the enemy, I won't be able to hold them off forever, and it is possible that our traitor guide may escape in the confusion. Sakura-san, Shino, you two go and look for Naruto and Hinata. If you find Haruka-san, take her with you as well. If not, don't worry about her, she is competent and skilled enough to sneak away. Are you sure you'll be alright with just two of you? Sakura asked. The first sounds of combat reached their ears. He'd been in many fights, but with such a large battle, and such an important prisoner and two friends lives in his hands. We can manage, he affirmed. We're in close quarters, Naruto and Hinata-sama are exposed in the streets, and will need you more than we will. Go immediately. Shino and Sakura nodded affirmative, and vanished forthwith. Neji and Kiba went back into the room which held Sasuke, and settled in for a long siege. The mountain town was under heavy siege from two opposite directions, and shinobi strike teams were quickly overpowering the mercenary soldiers. The town's defenders had to spread themselves evenly to both of them. This inability to concentrate their forces led to them being sorely beaten back before they could retaliation. On one end, Sakura and Shino leaped towards the center of the village, their civilian disguises removed, bearing the leaf insignia to alert any military in the area to their allegiance. From their vantage point, and with the aid of the bright warning lights that accompanied the sirens, they could see the invading force on their side of the village with little effort. Those are sound shinobi, Sakura said. And there's quite a few of them. They still have all these ninjas, even after losing so many in Konoha. This might be the remainder of their forces, replied the bug user from under his heavy coat. It makes sense that they would want to make their last stand here. It is well fortified, and they might withstand months of siege. Do you see now? Yes, Sakura said, looking over at it. The town forces are over the surprise now. They're starting to push back at them. With such a small hole in the wall to come through, the shinobi can't dodge all of the fire as they come in. Shino nodded. Even in coming through here, they will take significant losses, he said. But if they succeed, then they will have a very effective protection behind these walls. These are ordinary soldiers manning the walls. Can you imagine how well defended they would be if they were guarded by shinobi? Very, very well, imagined Sakura. Even with just a few, the precision and accuracy of ninjas, coupled with sturdy walls like these, would make a flat-out assault nearly The soldiers won't keep the sound out for long, said Sakura. We should hurry. We have to find those two and get out of here, now. Shino was silent, but he stepped up the pace. He had no desire to lose his teammate in this war, and Naruto was enough of a friend to him to merit saving, as well. The two of them zipped from roof to roof with as much speed as they could muster, all the while scouring the ground below for signs of their allies. However, keeping their eyes focused downward turned out not to be an especially good idea. It left them almost completely unaware to the dangers that came from above. Fortunately, Shino's bugs were more alert than he was, and they warned him in time. Sakura, get down, the bug user yelled. Their attackers were prepared to react to this maneuver, however. Hey, Pinkhead, play with me. The loud voice stopped Sakura, and as she looked around frantically for the source. As she regained her footing, she still couldn't find any trace of her mysterious attacker. I know you're here, she yelled. Show yourself. I've got a score to settle with you. Ayaka-chan wasn't the one that hit you, girlie, said the voice of her attacker. I was. And suddenly Sakura was struck again by the invisible opponent. She managed to stay on her feet this time, however, and turned in the direction the blow had come from. She had apparently missed, however, there was no sign of anything but the roof having sustained damage. Cursing, she swiveled her head, and caught sight of a tall, white-haired man in a sky-blue robe. The man was currently making seals with his hands. Sakura braced herself, she didn't know what it was this shinobi was capable of. Ninpu, Arashi Shibari no Jutsu. Secret art, storm binding technique. I apologize, said the man in the robe. I normally would not resort to K, but my teammates have identified you as obstacles between us and our targets. You will understand if we eliminate you now. Those jutsus. You're the team from Kumogakur, aren't you? Yelled the pink-haired girl from above the roar of the winds. You're after Hinata again. Why here, in this dangerous place, where you could get caught up in the war? Ha! Caught up in it, she says, scoffed the invisible attacker. As though we should be actually afraid. Hikaru, be quiet, said the wind user. Finish the task. All right, Kohei, sighed Hikaru. I'm going. Where they had come from, Sakura still could not see, for the jutsu that the boy had which allowed him to hide within the bright lights affixed to the raid sirens was still in effect. Ninpu, what the hell? Through the swirling cyclone, Sakura could at last make out the outline of Hikaru. You, shouted Hikaru. How the heck did you get me? The bugs alerted me, replied Shino. Your invisibility works well to deceive the eyes, but preparation for any ninjutsu will utilize chakra that the bugs can sense. They felt you molding chakra and alerted me to your general direction enough for me to react quickly. Damn it, yelled the enemy. Ayaka-chan, weren't you supposed to be holding him? I have said before, Hikaru, said the plant user, appearing next to Kohei, that the aberrame is strong against my plants. Knowing this, you should have spent less time talking rather than allow him time. Ayaka, Hikaru, interrupted Kohei sternly, that is enough bickering. If we do not K these two quickly, we will not have time to capture the targets before the end of the countdown. Do you understand? The other two Cloud Shinobi didn't have time to answer. It was a very large frog. On top of it stood Jiraiya. Your time is already up, Kohei, yelled the frog hermit, the light of battle fires glinting off of his unique forehead protector. Did you miss me? The one who had pulled Shino and Sakura up to join him on the frog's back now advanced forward to see the enemy as well. A long braid blew in the winds of war. So, these are the punks who attacked Hinata-chan in the cave, said Haruka. They don't look like much, Jiraiya. Are you sure they're as strong as you say they are? Gasped Sakura, surprised at their appearance, Jiraiya-sama. Haruka-san. I know the leader, Kohei, is very strong, said the Toad Sannin. He gave even me a rough time. Really? Said Haruka, licking her lips absent-mindedly. Sounds like a challenge. Not one I'd recommend taking on at your level, Jiraiya said. Not without that Keisuke fellow, anyway. As for the other two, I can't say. I've never seen 'em before. They can't be that good, Haruka mused, seeing as they lost to Naruto and his friends so easily. Hey, yelled Hikaru from below, we didn't lose, UB. That was a tactical retreat. Same difference, little boy, rejoined the S, smirking down at him. Though Hikaru fumed, Kohei had the stronger will. He caught and held his teammate's eye, keeping him from rushing forth in blind anger. You surprise me by showing up here, Jiraiya-sama, said the Wind Master. It seems that we will not be able to retrieve our targets tonight. Not with the Sannin and these three all at once in our way. We will make another retreat. Kohei made a short set of hand seals, and then a powerful gust blew towards the giant frog and its passengers. The shinobi, forced to hang onto the frog's skin with all their strength to prevent being blown off, could not pursue the cloud ninjas, who retreated under the wind's cover. Damned cowards, Haruka grumbled when she had picked herself up. Let them go, said Jiraiya. We have more important things to worry about. Aberrame, Sakura, where is Naruto? We were just out here looking for them, Sakura reported. But we haven't found them, Jiraiya asked. Naruto went into the village with Hinata, explained Shino, to gather information. The Toad Sannin's jaw dropped. He did what? No, I haven't taught him how to. And what was that about more important things to worry over, Jiraiya-sama? Asked Haruka, her eyebrows raised. Sennin, yelled a loud and frenzied voice. Quote. Naruto and Hinata leaped up to join their comrades, Sakura gave a sigh of relief, and Shino noted their return with approving silence. The two of them were still both in one piece and apparently unharmed. Aside from Naruto's anger at his former mentor, everything seemed to be okay. We saw your frog, said Hinata, and came right away. Reinforcements are right behind us. Reinforcements? Asked Shino. Yeah, said Naruto. The sand. They thought the sound would be moving here and came to keep them out of it. Who'd have thunk they would both get here at the same time? Sakura was struck speechless. The village was under attack from two different factions. Her mind went immediately to the aftermath of the battle. There would be many and a lot of homes could be destroyed from the clashing superpowers. So it comes to this, said Shino. We have been caught on the front line of this war. If we are to move any closer to our destination, we will first need to win this battle. Yeah, it looks like it, Naruto said. Damn, I didn't think I'd be seeing another huge battle like this so soon. None of us did, agreed Haruka. But that doesn't make winning any less important. Let's find Neji and Kiba and get to work. We've got a lot of flies to swat before morning. We may not have that long, added Shino. The enemy in blue mentioned a countdown. The village defenses had been completely overrun. The mercenary soldiers who were still alive had surrendered to either the sound or the sand, and the two shinobi forces were on a collision course with each other towards the middle of the village. The sirens began to hiss as the buildings, and in the middle of it, 9 shinobi of the Leaf, originally on a rescue and reconnaissance mission, were about to become part of the broader and more destructive war. The Cloud Trio, led by their senior teammate, Kohei, left the village quietly and without leaving a trace of themselves behind. Going through a clean, if somewhat dusty, tunnel created previously through rapid, forced wind erosion, they passed underneath the wall undetected, escaping into the south. Under their captain's orders, they kept running until they had completely lost sight of the smoke rising from the town behind innumerable rocky spires and peaks. Once well out of sight, Kohei called a halt. Hikaru, being the youngest of the group and possessing the least stamina, promptly flopped onto the ground, panting. They hadn't run very far, as shinobi distances went, but the pace that Kohei liked to set was far too quick for his liking. Ayaka, though less winded than her younger teammate, was obviously showing similar signs of fatigue. She leaned against a nearby rock formation and tossed back her dark hood, quietly sucking in oxygen to replace that which she had so quickly burned. Even she was unused to matching her senpai's speed. Kohei himself stood, a short distance from his comrades, allowing them time to recover themselves. Ayaka needed her breath to speak, and Hikaru, as much as Kohei would rather have him remain quiet, was unlikely to be able to hear orders over the current wheezing noises that he was making. He knew much of the noise was faked in an effort to complain where non-verbal complaints had been outlawed, but said nothing to criticize the boy. His pace had, after all, been faster than usual. It had to be, thought the Windmaster to himself, since it is not easy to ensure escape from one of Konoha's Sannin, even with the elements to ward us. Ayaka finally caught her breath, pulling her hood back over her head. She gathered herself and spoke up. Kohei-senpai, she questioned, green eyes flashing with a hint of amazement, I am surprised that you opted to retreat so quickly. With the strength that you possess, you are a match for almost any 4 or 5 skilled shinobi. We easily mastered the first 2 without using even a fraction of your power, so why did you choose to run when only 2 more appeared? Yeah, added Hikaru, spontaneously recovering from his wheezing. I've been wondering about that, too. The countdown's not supposed to be up for another 6 minutes. You can't expect me to believe that some old man, 2 girls, and some human ant farm would have held us up that long. I would not speak so lightly of the Aberrane clan if I were you, Hikaru, said Ayaka. The light-haired youth stared at the girl for a moment. A confusion was plain as day in his face. Kohei raised an eyebrow at the exchange, curious to know what this was about. He allowed Hikaru to go on staring and Ayaka to continue glaring for the full 3 seconds before the boy spoke again. What's with you, Ayaka-chan? He asked. Ever since we first ran into these guys, you've been on my case about it. Must respect the Aberrane, or never underestimate the Aberrane's ability. What is it about this guy that has you so worked up? You got a grudge against him. Hikaru would have rambled on, but a length of vine suddenly tangled itself around his face, muffling him. His eyes went wide, and he began making garbled complaints. His voice stopped, however, when he saw his teammate move to stand, dark and looming, directly over him, a look of M in her eyes. More scared of her now than he had ever been of Kohei, he sat perfectly still. My reasons are my own, she said. Inquire again, and you will find yourself in an amount of pain that you never thought you were capable of feeling. Now you will sit quietly, and listen to Kohei-senpai's orders. Understood. No argument passed of Hikaru, and after a 5 seconds that seemed 5 years, the vines released themselves and retreated back underneath their cloak. He picked him up and began hastily to clean and bandage his arm, shuddering at the memory of his near-death experience. He no longer wanted anything to do with the Aberame, he had another thought on his mind. Ayaka-chan, you're a total beauty, but, damn. You're scarier than Kohei and that crazy strong medic chick combined. Sensing that all relevant exchanges had transpired, the Wind Master adjusted his blue robe and took his turn to speak. The moon framed him like an angel's glow as he explained himself. The reason that I retreated, Kohei said, was because of the older man, the frog summoner. He is known as Jiraiya, the Toad Hermit, and he is one of Konoha no Sato's renowned Sannin. As such, he is among the strongest shinobi known to the entire world. To defeat him alone would have required the combined efforts of all three of us, and it would have taken an immense amount of time. To try to pass him and retrieve our targets within the allotted time would have been an impossible mission. Ayaka's eyebrows narrowed at this information. Are you certain it was the Jiraiya, senpai? He did not seem to me to be one of any great power, though he did arrive on a large frog. Hikaru, still too much in shock to speak but not too much so to wonder, turned his head up from his work to look at his captain. He, too, was interested in hearing the response. It was the very same, replied Kohei, as the Jiraiya whom I fought before, when my previous attempt on my target failed, and I have no desire to repeat the experience. So, asked Hikaru, having recovered enough courage to speak, what are we gonna do now? The targets will be a lot better protected. Kohei nodded. This is the truth. We will need to exercise a great amount of care from now on. We will need to watch them carefully, and wait for the ideal opportunity. With such a strong opponent, the opportunity may never present itself, argued Ayaka. The girl's eyes betrayed a hint of disappointment. All present knew that she had little patience for impossible missions. Perhaps, said the Wind Master. But, perhaps not. Even the legendary Jiraiya-sama is bound to have weaknesses that we can exploit. Jiraiya did indeed have weaknesses. To this date, the official record listed 0, but there were in actuality 2 of them, and they could be found in the section of his profile headed by likes. These 2 unofficial weaknesses were sake and women, and when both were present in abundance, the Toad Sennin was at his most vulnerable, becoming nearly as harmless as a sheep. However, neither one was present at this moment, and the sheep had turned into an unstoppable force that no sound shinobi wanted to be near. At one point, a few of the mercenary soldiers that remained alive, intending to rat the shinobi in a last-ditch effort to stop the invasion. They began to fire indiscriminately, not caring whether they hit sand, sound, or leaf. Their first shot arced high into the night air, following a steep parabola which right on the illustrious Sannin's head. Jiraiya, not having earned his lure because of his endless drinking, noticed it coming long before it was upon him. He formed a few rapid hand seals, and his hair immediately lengthened and took on the properties of a porcupine's hide. Yet even as he was doing this, the Sannin had begun preparations for another jutsu. Power swirled in the palm of his hand, taking on the form of a sphere. Rasengan. Jiraiya stood tall over his enemies, a smile of grim satisfaction on his face. He knew that there would be no escape for these poor, misguided souls. The ones who fled met no opposition for 2 blocks of street, and it seemed that they would be able to get away alive. However, these defeated ninja were unable to see the invisible seal that had embedded itself in the ground in the 3rd block. By the time the white glow started up, signaling the trap's activation, they were already irrevocably caught. Naruto's voice rang out in the night, sounding out the doom. Reud Ninpu, Chiri Bofuwana. The trap seal went off, round and round they went, completely at the mercy of a 15-year-old blonde kid. Okay, go now, Hinata, he yelled, leaping down from his hiding place atop a roof. Above him, regiment of training with wind jutsu. Thusly armed with protected, superior vision, the enemy fought her, of course, but prompt retaliation with well placed. He approached the edge of the whirlwind, hands outstretched, brow furrowed in concentration. This was a critical part. If he messed this up, Hinata might get seriously hurt. His gathered chakra pulsed around him, making his orange and black jacket, and his deep blue irises fixed upon the twister. He anchored himself to the ground with his 9 chakra tails, and his maneuver. Exercising chakra nature manipulation practiced over many days, this he held steady, watching the whirlwind until he caught sight of his signal, a yellow smoke trail. With this flare he was able to see the path of Hinata and her captive as they whirled round and time his move perfectly. When the smoke trail was on its way around towards him again and angled slightly upward, enemies flew out of the vortex as it dissipated, vaulting involuntarily to their doom. Naruto didn't care about those others. Getting his own allies out alive was the priority. Luckily, his timing had been perfect, and Hinata sailed in a neat upward arc, gravity slowly decelerating her. This was more than manageable enough, and far better than the paths of those who had been thrown straight down. Naruto created a multitude of shadow clones, and all of them leaped up to meet the Hyuga girl just as she began to come down. He could not jump anywhere near as high as Hinata had flown, of course, but thanks to his cage buncheons, he had plenty of stepping stones. He and several more of himself were grabbed and tossed up higher by those that were below them, and when this burst of upward velocity ran out, those that made it up this high paired off and through again. The true Naruto's heart raced a mile per minute. It had been a crazy stunt to begin with, but he'd never expected to be this high in the air, ever. Finally, after throwing 3 times, Naruto and his clones caught up with the girl. It had not been long since she had begun falling, and he and one buncheon were able to grab hold of both her. She seemed to be okay, though her hair was windswept, her face was pallid with vertigo. If Naruto had time to talk, he would have told her that he understood. There was only one way to go now, and that was down, from a height of perhaps 20 stories. A shinobi was trained to cushion his or her fall and land lightly enough to avoid injury, but even these techniques wouldn't be able to spare them completely from that height. Oh boy, Naruto thought to himself. Maybe I should have used a different trap. Some might have gotten away, but then we wouldn't be this freaking high. They were fortunate. The shadow clones that had managed to come back down without puffing into smoke had recovered themselves and were now coming up again. Naruto and the clone that helped him carry the load used each successive one as a springboard, allowing the leapers to heave up on their feet and slow them down. It was nerve-wracking, because there was always the chance that a clone would pass by them accidentally without slowing them at all. However, for the first 3 waves, this didn't occur, and the falling party began to feel a bit safer. On the 4th wave of leapers, Naruto managed to connect with one, but the buncheon holding the captive missed his mark, continuing to fall. Hinata let out a small gasp as they continued to plummet, despite the clone's mad scramble to pass him between one another. Damn it, Naruto swore again, putting Hinata down. He's all those flashy acrobatics for nothing. Hinata, glad to be out of the air, said, "You shouldn't be worried, Naruto-kun. I'm sure there will be other chances. And it's good that we're still alive." Naruto had to agree with that last part. His heart still wouldn't slow down. After all, his wind trap had become infinitely stronger since he'd begun practicing. He was glad to note, mentally, that her clothing and long hair had been rendered completely filthy by the dust storm, and that the goggles he had lent her had left a band of cleanliness around her eyes that looked ridiculously like a raccoon mask, but she was all in one piece. Satisfied, he gave a small nod to himself and turned toward the city walls. "Okay," he said. "Let's go see if we can find us another batch before." Sound forces in full retreat. Came a loud yell from the direction he faced. Guard forces neutralized. Town is now under the control of the sand. A mighty cheer rose up among the shinobi who had survived. A few of them even began singing songs that were unfamiliar to Naruto and Hinata, but which sounded suspiciously like a Wind Country victory march. Fire and medical crews rushed forward to begin the cleanup in the wake of the sound retreat. A few civilian heads poked out of their windows and doors, seeing for themselves whether the violence was truly over. These people were used to being captured. They knew when it was time to hide and when it was safe to come out again. Great, Naruto groaned. How are we going to interrogate any of them now? Hinata stopped brushing herself off for a moment to try to answer him with reassurance. However, she was almost immediately interrupted by her rambunctious teammate, who landed on the side of her opposite from Naruto, clenching his fists and carrying a turbulent expression on his face. Akamaru crashed down shortly behind him, but whimpering. Interrogate. Kiba yelled loudly. We've won already. Let's just get the hell out of here. Everyone present found themselves recoiling in surprise. Kiba was normally a wild man, but the feral look of horror on his countenance and the way his voice cracked oddly signaled trouble. Hinata went into gentle peacekeeper mode. Kiba-kun, she asked softly, what happened? Nothing, snapped the dog boy. Our job here is done, right? Let's go. Hold it, Kiba, said Naruto, stepping forward and grabbing the other boy's arm. Kiba looked toward him and snarled with anger, snatching his hand back. Hey, said the blonde, raising his own voice. No need to get so testy. We're Neji and the guys we sent to find you. And on top of that, what's up with the weird act, anyway? Kiba has had a bad experience, but the rest of us are fine, came a low voice from a nearby alley. As well off as I can be, being practically dragged across burning wreckage, complained another one from the same direction. The owners of the two voices emerged. One of them was tall, sepia-haired, and clothed in dirty robes. The other was still bound up in his bag, with only his raven-crested head sticking out, wearing a nasty expression of distaste. Naruto recognized them as Neji and Sasuke, and behind them followed Sakura, who had apparently been the one to find them. Naruto rushed over. Glad to see you're still alive. Have a rough time? Naruto asked, noting several smudges on the Junin's face. We're fine, Neji repeated. As for Kiba, he had a bad encounter with some of the locals. Shut up, yelled Kiba. Don't remind me. Let's just get out of here. Neji finished. Kiba's face in rage, but he couldn't strike his commander. So he waited there, seething and wishing he could undo the whole day. Sakura looked down at her feet. She had tried to save the poor child. The death, and the aftermath that followed, brought inexplicable sadness to her. The mother had gone berserk, charging the wild boy and his dog with a hysterical grief and anger that he had only been able to stand and endure until Sakura and Neji had grabbed hold of him and hauled him away. The other Leaf Shinobi were quietly stunned, both sorry for him and at the same time not quite believing that such an accident had actually happened. Hinata clasped her hands together in front of her, looking with sadness upon her troubled teammate and friend. They'd worked together a long time. She knew what the young Inuzuka must be thinking of himself. Neji was still able-minded, however, and he did not allow his subordinates to grieve long. There were other matters to discuss and not much time to discuss them. Soon, they would have to be moving again, especially if they wanted to outrun the front lines of this war. Where are Haruka and Shino? He asked. Sakura told us that you sent them looking for us, but they should have had time to search the entire village by now. Have you found either of them, or are they with Jiraiya-sama? Naruto shook his head. I haven't found, he said. But I don't know if Erosenins had any luck or not, so there might be some chance there. That's fine, said Neji, nodding. We should find them easily. Once we do find them, though, we'll be moving out of here immediately, to put some distance between us and the main battle line. Our pace will have to be quicker from now on. You sure about that? Naruto asked. The Sand guys might still need us. We don't know if the Sound have something up their sleeves, and that countdown thing we heard about still hasn't been figured out. The sooner Shinobi have the entire village and its fortifications under control, Neji told him. We spoke to a passing Junin about the countdown, and they will have teams sweeping the area for traps or explosives. Also, soldiers and siege crews from the army of the Wind Country are on their way and will be here by morning, so the Sand will be well reinforced. They have no need of us. Naruto took this in, then gave a nod and a thumbs up. With his fears dispelled, he had as little reason as the rest of them to be in this war-torn place. He went back to stand with Hinata, carefully avoiding Kiba's eyes. The brown-haired dog owner was keeping one angry eye on him, as though it were Naruto's fault for asking about it. Akamaru looked at Naruto also, but his doggy eyes were strangely apologetic. The blonde Chunin fought the impulse to blink and stare. That mutt was getting more human in expression even as his master got wilder. Neji gave the order to get moving, searching for the rest of their friends. It was dark underneath the shadows of the two houses. They had miraculously remained intact, each supporting the other's weight. Of course, the families within had promptly left the vicinity for fear that their homes wouldn't remain at rest. They were right to have done so, though they remained precariously balanced now. They creaked and groaned, giving the impression to passerby that they might topple at any moment. This effect added a sense of terror that the darkness alone never would have inspired. This was precisely the reason why Haruka had chosen this spot to chat. She had caught him trying to sneak through a gap in one of the barricades, long before the enemy leaders had sounded the retreat horn. The S had labeled him as a coward then, and therefore an ideal target. She had been right. The man practically reeked of fear. A normal person might have taken pity on the poor soul, for there were stronger men than him who had caved to the white-eyed, demonic, genjutsu-altered face that grinned terribly before him now. But Haruka was not normal in this fashion. She enjoyed inhaling the fumes of terror that he gave off, knowing that it had been she herself who caused them. Did that make her evil? Of course not. She would never do this to good people. They might get pranked in rude, ugly ways, but never were they subjected to this. Because they had been spared, however, Haruka's friends had no real conception of the monster that had truly earned her the name, S. Faced with this monstrosity, coupled with the dark and the possibility of being crushed at any time the wind chose to pick up, there was nothing that the poor man would not say to have his life spared. Tell me, said the S. RRIII. The longer you delay, the more painful it will be. The captive sound Nin swallowed hard, trying desperately to get his fear under control. This was the most horrible monster he had ever met, even if it was only a genjutsu. Laboring to control his breathing, he tried once more to speak. We came here, you see, and not knowing the sand would follow. We were such a small F-force, and there are no others left, since there were so few to begin with and fewer still who survived the assault on Kanoa. Then you and the sound that attacked here tonight are the last ones. Thinking to make a final stand in this fortress, were you? Why yes. And where is your snake of a master now, worm? This was a tough decision. Nobody really knew where Orochimaru went. He had spent the last 3 years moving around constantly, communicating his orders through shady elite agents that nobody dared to question or make demands of. But if he said he didn't know, would she buy it? His indecision cost him. A hand lanced toward him. Don't try my patience. I am not Morino Ibiki, who has the luxury of time. In the end, he decided to simply tell the truth and hope for the best. Once he got his cough under control and was able to breathe with a sense of normalcy, he opened his mouth to the creature. I don't not know. The hand came again, this time hitting him in the side. He howled as pain seared into his intestines. I told you not to waste my time. Bellowed the S. Your master, Orochimaru, has something of mine. If you won't help me find it, then you can drop off the face of the earth. Ah, he thought, completely off his rocker by now. What's that rumbling? She asked, dropping the genjutsu. The noise she heard sounded like thunder, but it was much more rhythmic and constant than any normal thunderstorm would sound. It grew closer, and the earth began shaking. Fragments of the houses began falling down on them. No, she yelled at whatever gods were listening. Damn it, I wasn't finished yet. Is the word of a traitor all you're going to let me have? What the hell is that? She asked as the noise backed down. She looked with an annoyed expression at where the section of wall used to be. What she saw made her expression of annoyance disappear. Oh, an entire army stood within 100 yards of her. An army wearing cloud headbands. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.